What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 45th edition of Tequila Tuesday. We're closing in on 1 year worth of these Tequila Tuesday events. They're brought to you, as always, by Sendoso, Scotty's Little Sales Club's official sending partner. And we're here today with Ian Koniak. What's up, Ian?
What's up? What's up?
I'm super excited to have Ian here. I met Ian maybe a little over a year ago or so now. Talked back and forth a few times, spoke on our podcast, had some calls together, just trying to help each other out, talking shop, talking business. Ian's got an incredible background. He was top seller at Salesforce for a long time, and he is running his own coaching business now, and I'll let him kind of get into a little bit of his background, but he's here to talk to us about something that we all need to get better at. And I'm really excited for this conversation, and I hope you all get a lot of value out of it. If you've got questions, drop them in the chat. As always, I'm going to take down everybody's name. I'll get a queue running, and we'll pull you off mute and give you a chance to ask your questions of Ian. And he might call on people. We got 50 people here, Ian. We're looking pretty good. And I'm going to turn it over to you and kind of mute myself and get out of the way, my man.
All right. Well, just enable share screening or screen share when you can, just so I can get on.
Yeah, I got you. I'm not a total, newbie.
You're a rookie. You're a novice with this whole Zoom thing.
Well, I'm a novice at most things technological. This is true, but I got you. You're good.
All right. Well, I am thrilled to be here. I just want to say, I not to brown nose to start off, but Scott is an abundant sales leader if I've ever met one. And when I was thinking of doing my own thing and leaving Salesforce over a year ago, I called him first. And he gave me some words of wisdom and was very giving with his time. And everything comes full circle in life. Everything comes back to you. So for me to have an opportunity to serve Scott's community, to serve everyone here and share something that's near and dear to my heart, it's nice to be here. Thanks for having me on, Scott. I recognize a couple people in the group. I see Nick here. I see a few faces from my LinkedIn feed. I don't know if anyone has met me before or seen any of my content, but today I'm here to talk about a major transformation that I had a few years ago. And specifically, I made a transformation between transactional run rate driven selling and strategic selling. So I went from, the grind of sales and, work really hard, show up every day. It feels forced. It feels really hard. Got to pump yourself up to really a different way of selling that is focused on solving problems and really helping customers achieve desired outcomes at the highest possible level in enterprise sales. And this was a transition that I made, which changed my entire life. It changed the course of everything I've done since then. And I'm excited to share with the group exactly what I did to make that transition today. And the biggest thing I did was I started focusing on selling to executives and having really powerful executive conversations, which I'm going to teach you how to do today. And so without further ado, I'm going to, we have polls. I like it. I'm going to use a poll later. All right. So can everyone see my screen okay? It should say impactful executive conversations.
I got it.
Cool.
I got a white screen, Ian. I got a white screen.
You can't see it?
No, it's all white.
Try one more time. That's weird. How's that?
There you go. That worked.
All right. This is intended for Scotty's Little Sales Club Patreon group only. So that's a mouthful to say, but everything I'm going to share is real deals, real stories, real information. Above all, I consider myself an AE, not a sales trainer or a sales coach, but I truly am still selling every day. And I don't hide or disguise any of the work that I've done. So just please keep this confidential and do not distribute this. It's for your eyes only. A little bit about me. When I think about kind of like roles, I talk a lot about work-life integration in my content, right? You're not going to be one person in your work and one person outside of work. Ultimately, you want to be the same person you are in all aspects of your life, whether it's with your friends, with your family, with your work. We wear a lot of different hats. And for me, my number one hat is being the best father and the best husband I can be to my family above all else. I also run a sales coaching business. And I spent 19 years selling. So of those years, 14 years were selling directly as an individual contributor, and 5 years were in leadership, running sales teams. So I've been fortunate to have a very, very successful career in sales, and sold over $100 million. But a lot of times people, they don't realize what it took to get there. And so I want to start not by sharing kind of where I am today, but where I was 5 years ago. And I posted this on my LinkedIn today. But 5 years ago, I was in a very different place. It was January 31st, 2017. And it was the last day of our fiscal year. And just to set some context, I had been the #1 account executive at Ricoh for 10 years and had been the #1 director of sales for 5 years in leadership. And my entire identity and my self-worth was based on being a top performer. I thought I was hot shit. I decided I'm going to go into Salesforce, and I end up getting Rookie of the Year at Salesforce in the enterprise, mainly because I grinded, I hustled, and I found a very big deal. I got it. After that year, I missed my quota 2 years in a row. Bad. I'm like, this isn't my fault. It's not me. It's got to be other things outside of me. It's my boss. It's my territory. It's my accounts. It's the team I'm on. So I decide that I'm going to change my situation. And instead of leaving Salesforce, right? Because one of Scott's comments is, how didn't you get fired? Well, I think I was on my way to getting fired, but I changed teams. So I decided to stay inside of Salesforce, and I get on another team. And I say, you know what? Maybe I'm not cut out for the enterprise. Maybe this enterprise selling thing's not for me. I need more at-bats. I'm more of a transactional guy. I can out hustle and outwork everyone. And so I go to the commercial team where I have more accounts and it's smaller accounts. And I start grinding and hustling and working my tail off. I'm 95% of plan going into the last day of the fiscal year. There's a company, car company, electric vehicle company called Faraday Future. And Faraday Future calls me up the day before the fiscal year, January 30th, and they said, Ian, the CFO approved the deal, the CEO approved it, and the chief head of sales approved a $250K deal. I was $50K short of my quota, and I'm like, great, can you sign the paperwork? Like, well, one last thing. The president of the company wants you to come in. She has a couple questions for you, just a formality, but she wants to meet you. Can you come in tomorrow? Last day, we'll have it signed. I'm like, sure. So I get to their office, sit down with the president. She starts asking me about the deal. She says, everything looks good. I just need to make a couple calls. It's in the afternoon. It's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. She leaves me outside of her office for 2 hours, 2 hours sitting outside of her office on the phone. She's Chinese and she's speaking Chinese. She calls me into her office at 4 p.m. and she says, Ian, I'm so sorry, but we're not going to be able to sign the deal today. I said, well, what happened? What's going on? Everyone approved it. I mean, I've been working on this thing all year. What's the deal? He's like, well, I had to call our parent company in China. And unfortunately, they told me, the CIO told me that they're working on a similar project, a similar CRM project, and they don't want to have us sign off until they do diligence and they understand the differences, because they don't want to have overlap and redundancy in the two projects. And I'm like, that's bullshit. Like, this is not fair. Everyone approved. It's totally different. Give me the CIO's number. I'll call the CIO. I will talk to them. I will convince them to do the deal. Okay. And so I call the CIO, doesn't pick up. I'm sitting outside the president's office. I said, look, if I can get the CIO to sign today, or to say yes, will you sign? She's like, sure. Send me the DocuSign. Just get the CIO on the phone. If he says it's okay, I'm good. So I have one more decision maker. I call, nothing. I go home. She kicks me out of the office. I'm like, I am not going to lose 3 years in a row. I will not miss my quota. I'm so close. Finally get him on the phone. It's about 9 or 10 at night. Okay. He picks up the phone. He said, Ian, what is going on? Like, why do you keep calling? Like, this is crazy. I said, it's the last day of the fiscal year. We have to do this deal, or else we have to start all over. It's not the same. Like, what questions do you have? I'm happy to walk you through it. He's like, Ian, I don't have time for this. I'm on vacation with my family. I got to go. Click. And I looked in the mirror and I thought to myself, fuck! I screamed to the top of my lungs. I'm not kidding. In that moment, I had a pulsing, throbbing headache. I felt the thump of my head. I felt a ringing in my ears. I barely recognized myself. And I said, I am never going to let this happen again. I don't care what it takes. I am never going to put myself in a position again where I miss one deal at the end of the year. Because at that point, I felt like a failure. I truly felt like I had failed and I had nothing. I didn't even know who I was. And that began my journey over 5 years ago into personal development and into self-mastery, which is really what I've been focused on the past 5 years. But it also became and got my journey into selling to executives, because I realized that what I missed was critical in enterprise selling, which is being multi-threaded and knowing how decisions are truly made and understanding that there's not just one decision maker, and you have to understand the process, especially in enterprise selling, or else you're going to be blindsided. So I said it will never happen again. And since that time, I've made club every year, was able to start my own company, run it full time, make massive changes in my life. Okay. And it all started with being in so much pain in that moment that I realized I need to change. If you want to change your results, you have to change yourself. You have to change how you sell. So what happened at this point? What changed in this moment? The biggest change was I had been focusing a little bit of time on a lot of smaller opportunities at the department level, which is the fastest path to scraping and clawing to barely make plan. And that's what I was going through. And the biggest shift is I said, I'm going to spend a lot more time focusing on fewer but larger opportunities at the executive level. And the following year, I made over $1 million. And I repeated it afterwards. Okay. So executive selling works. It's transformational. And it's absolutely the fastest path to get to 300-400% of plan. It's the only way to get way overachieving. Okay. So this is the big shift. It's really simple. If your quota is $2 million, you can sell 20 100K deals or 40 50K deals to get there, or you can sell 4 500K deals or $2 million deals, right? The big difference is that fundamentally the larger deals are transformational in nature. You are solving their biggest problems. You are helping them achieve their key goals. You are playing the long game, lots more stakeholders involved, and ultimately you're a trusted advisor, okay? Now, here's the funny thing. The 100K deal often takes the same time as the $1 million deal. The 100K deal actually takes as much time as the $1 million deal. But when you're selling to executives, the sales cycle gets compressed. It gets compressed in very, very short order. So the impact of selling, I'm going to do a quick poll because I want to see, but I'd love to see what everyone thinks of this. Let's see. Are you planning to attend the hard no? I'm not going to the I think that's a different poll that I've never done this poll launch before, so I'm not going to try.
How did you do that?
I don't even know what I did. I've never done it. It's not my Zoom.
How did that even get in there?
It just said poll. It just said launch poll. So funny. That's giving me a new.
Oh my God! It's from October. That's like a.
That's so funny. It's not. I can't change the poll name. Okay, so here's my question. What
do a non-scientific poll, Ian?
Yeah, you could tell. I'm just as bad as you, Scott, with the Zoom.
Yeah, that's right.
So I want to ask the group a question. What percent likelihood do you feel like having a decision maker engaged in a deal? What percent impact does it have on your likelihood of closing a deal at the SMB level, at small, medium business or mid-market level? I want to take some, just throw it in the chat. 50% lower, 100, 80. SMB level is 60%, 75. Cynthia, 75. Okay, Chris says 80. All right, what do you think that turns into at the enterprise level? And I'll give you a hint. It can be over 100%. It's just the likelihood, the percent impact on a deal. likelihood. Dale says 300, 100 at enterprise. Okay, so you guys we have one winner, winner chicken dinner. I saw the answer. Chris, I'm sorry if I butcher your last name, Fogier. You got it. It's 80% at the SMB level. A deal is 80% less likely to close if a decision maker is not engaged at the SMB level. And in the enterprise, I think Dale is the closest. No, actually, Chris won again. I think Chris saw the survey results. Gong put out some research on this, looking at correlation between decision maker engagement and a deal likelihood of closing. I don't know if everyone knows Devin Reed from Gong, but he did a blog about this, and these are the stats that came. So a deal is virtually impossible to close if you're not engaged at the decision maker level in the enterprise. Almost impossible. Okay, so the question is, why don't many AEs try to sell to executives? What's the hang up? If we know it's like the number one key thing that indicates whether a deal is going to happen or not, why do you think that people don't want to do it? Dale says lazy. Okay. Scared, fear, afraid, unsure how about access. Okay. So fear is definitely one. Hard to reach. I would agree with that. It's harder. Access is a big one. They can't get through. So access is another one. What else? They allow themselves to get pushed around. They don't know how. Okay. These are all good reasons. So I've boiled it down to 3, and I like access as a 4th. I really like that one because it is harder to get in. I just didn't include that as one of my 3. So the first is imposter syndrome. Okay. And this ties to fear. It's the same as fear. You guys had I think, an imposter syndrome coach on here recently. And so you know all about this, but people don't think they could add value to executives. Why would an executive want to talk to me? I'm a lowly AE or SDR or whatever. Why would they consider talking to me? What value can I add? They know their business better than me. Okay, that's very common. Okay, fear. So imposter syndrome is really like not thinking you could add value or that you have nothing to add. Fear is they're intimidated by title. So they're a little bit different. They are intimidated because this person's very successful, and they don't want to burn the bridges with their champion, which someone else mentioned. You don't want to go around your champion saying, no, work with me. I'm going to block it. I'll get it done. I'll push it through. So these are kind of some of the main reasons that people don't go to executives. I would, challenge some AEs in this group. And I'd say access is another one. It's a lot harder. And I would agree with you guys. Let me ask you this. When you see Scott Leese, when you guys see Scott Leese, does anyone here get intimidated or afraid of talking to him? Be honest, raise your hand. I'm not seeing anyone say yes, fundamentally.
They're all like, maybe a year ago, but not now.
Okay. Affirmance says I did when he was my SVP. I used to. Wow. Okay. So that's interesting. So why did you used to feel intimidated? Was it just because his title, or was it his demeanor or presence? For the people that you said you used to, for Jose, and I don't know if that's a joke or not. Was that a joke or not? Not really. Maybe it was a joke. Here's the thing. I bring up Scott for a reason. I spend most of the day talking to executives, SVPs of sales, head of sales, people that buy sales training or coaching. And most of them are actually like Scott. Okay. They're very direct. They're very approachable, and, they're easy to talk to. In fact, easier than many people, but you don't realize that until you start having the conversations, until you actually start meeting and working with executives. Do you realize like they are just like you, ambitious, direct, hungry, present, right? This is the key things. So the question is, how do you get access? How do you get access to the executives? And how do you actually get from like meeting in this dingy conference room with no windows to like getting a seat at the boardroom, right in front of their board? And there's a few ways, but the number one way that I would say is it addresses this imposter syndrome thing we're talking about. You have to fundamentally believe that you are equal to them. You cannot put them on a pedestal, because when you put people, not just executives, but when you put people on a pedestal, that means you're looking up to them and they're looking down at you. But when you're talking to someone as a human, and when you see them eye to eye as a person first, as a human first, and not a title or decision maker or an executive, then you can actually speak to them and be present and focus on helping them and listening to them and actually having a conversation. Okay. So the key is actually to realize executives are no different than you. At the end of the day, we all put our pants on the same way. This is really, really key. It is a mindset. Don't be afraid. There's nothing to fear. Once you do what you're afraid of, you're no longer afraid of it. So don't worry about title. We're talking about persons. Number 2 is you have to reset your intention. You have to reset your intention. Most people are focused on selling when they meet with executives and closing a deal or moving a deal forward. Selling and closing is an outcome, okay, that will come out of helping. I want to rehash this point. When you are focusing and approaching them with the intention of helping them solve a problem or achieve a goal rather than selling or a product or a service, then you can be seen as a trusted advisor, as a partner, because they know your intention is to help. So before I ever pitch, before I ever talk about myself, before I ever truly talk about the solution, the product, the pricing, the demo, I really want to understand what it is that they're trying to solve, what it is that they're faced with in terms of their biggest challenges and pain points. And is that something I can even help with? And if I can't, I'm not even going to start to pitch. I'm not even going to worry about it, right? That's the key, is selling the right way. And I know you guys believe this because you're in this group and Scott and I follow a similar philosophy, but when you sell the right way, it's all about helping them alleviate pain or achieve a goal or a desired outcome. It's the bottom line. If I'm going to sell training, I want to make sure I understand why they need training, what they've tried to do in the past before that didn't work, how many reps are new, how many reps are over quota, what types of reps they have in the team, what is the dynamic of the team, where do they need help? And then I'll deliver a custom program. I won't talk about my programs until I know how and where I can help. Okay. That's how you go from closing 25 or 33% to closing 60 or 70% of deals. What I'm talking about right now is a mindset shift from inward to outward. What I'm talking about is moving from coming with an intention of being here to sell to being here to help you and serve you. When you do that, executives will want to work with you. Okay. Instead of showing up and throwing up, start to listen and understand and see if there's even a need or use case that you can help with. All right. Really, people will pay anything and budgets will appear seemingly out of nowhere when you can show them how you can solve their biggest problems or address their biggest pain points. They will move budget around. They will figure out ways to make it work. They will work with you if your solution is a priority based on their top goals for this year. So I'm going to talk to you about how to uncover those through powerful questions that you can ask. But that's really what we need to do, is understand their top priorities for the year, understand their biggest challenges and pain points, and determine, is what I sell aligned to helping them achieve those priorities or solve those challenges. It's a shift from inward, which is I'm here to sell and all that matters is my commission, to outward, I'm here to help and your success is my success. Okay. If you help other people get what they want, you will get what you want. I promise you. When I started making it all about me and my quota, that's when I missed it. When I made it all about helping other people with their goals, that's when my quota skyrocketed, my attainment skyrocketed. That year that I shifted my performance, I invested $25,000 of my own money to personal development. And this is the biggest thing they taught me, is they said, Ian, you're making it all about you. You're selfish. And when you do that, you reek of commission breath and your customers can smell it a mile away. Okay. They think it's for you. It's not for you. It's for them. It's not about you. It's about them. So that's the big shift that you have to make with executives. Now, this is a psychology. It's a principle. It's a principle. When customers feel like you need them, they will feel like they don't need you. When they feel like that you don't need them, they will feel like they need you even more. Okay. So really don't be attached to the outcomes. Don't be attached to the outcomes, the desperation of having to close a deal. That was me the last day of the fiscal year with the CIO. Please, please, we have to do this. It's the last day of the fiscal year. That's what didn't work. What worked is telling them why they need to do it and how it's going to help them and make it on their timeline, not particularly mine, okay? Backing into their goals and showing them why they needed to do it to hit the key goals, which I didn't do. I made it all about my fiscal year, my discount, me, my company, all right? It's all about the customer. Remember that, okay? The key here is that you need to realize what you're doing is good for them, not for you. It's good. It's you. You're secondary. You're secondary. This is for them. So look, if you don't want it, no sweat, no worries. Your loss. I promise you, when I started selling this way and when I started approaching without like, hey, look, if you don't want coaching, that's fine. You don't want training, like go for it. Keep doing what you're doing. How's that working out? Right? So this is the attitude fundamentally that pulls people in to want to work with you. When they feel like you're needy and attached, they're just repulsed. It repulses them. That commission breath is a real thing, okay? So now I'm going to get into a little fundamentals of what you want to focus on for these conversations. So I'd love to take a question in the chat and fundamentally ask everyone, why do customers buy at the highest level, at the executive level? Why do customers buy? Why do executives decide to prioritize some projects over another? I'd love to kind of get revenue, profit on revenue, strategic outcomes. They're in pain. To alleviate pain, need, make life easier, helps them with career. Those are all great answers, okay? But the biggest answer, the number one reason people buy is to solve problems which are causing pain within their organization or preventing them from achieving what they desire most. We have to remember, customers buy to solve problems which are causing pain within their organization or preventing them from accomplishing what they desire most. Or it could be causing them personal pain. Maybe they're having no time with their family, or they're completely out of whack. They're unhealthy because they have to work weekends or whatever. It could be personal too, but in general, people buy because they are in pain, and that pain is causing them to lose something. There is a theory called prospect theory, and this is really important. I want you to remember this one. And prospect theory says that people are 2 to 3 times more likely to do something to avoid a loss than rather to go after a gain. And this makes a lot of sense because they haven't had that gain before, right? Whatever you're selling them is new. They've lived this long without it, right? They didn't have this new automation software and they've been fine. They didn't have the latest widget and they've been okay. So why sell all the benefits of the widget? Instead, focus on what it's costing them to stay the same and what they stand to lose if they don't change. This is why executives buy, because what they're doing today is preventing them from achieving the goals that they basically set out to achieve, okay? So fundamentally, what loss aversion says is spend more time on the pain of the problem or why they need to change than spending time on all the great benefits that your solution's going to offer. And that's where a lot of people miss the conversation. So I'm going to show you how to do this in a couple minutes, but I've introduced a framework I call yo-yo selling. I introduced it as a joke originally, because I'm like, well, people say, Ian, how do you sell at the executive level? I'm like, well, it's kind of like a yo-yo. You start high and then you go down and you collect the information, kind of go back up and you go back down, and you're kind of going back and forth between the department and the executive. And that's really what it is, right? So fundamentally, you're selling at the executive level, you're getting influence in decision-making, but you're still going down to the user or the group level to be able to understand their current situation, the systems that are used, the processes that are in place. So the key to getting access to the stakeholders and the executives up front is to research and really understand who the person is that you're talking to or targeting, what they care about, what their company care about, and create a compelling point of view that's hyper personalized to them, and using that to prospect. Once you get that first meeting, right, then it's all about gaining their sponsorship to do a deeper discovery with their team or with other stakeholders. Okay. And then going back up to them, surfacing that information, and then co-presenting and working through them to close the deal. It's amazing how fast and how quickly you can close large deals with this yo-yo selling approach. So it's not just one person. You still got to meet with the other levels, but you start and get sponsorship from them. Now, the question is,
Ian,
yep.
Can I pause you here for a second? Can you go back to the yo-yo slide?
Sure.
I would love to know, in your opinion, which step is the one that people skip over or screw up the most?
By far, I would say 1 and 2, because they go together. So they might do a little surface level research. Hey, I saw you were at this company 6 months. Love to know your goals and objectives. That's not the research I'm talking about. When I'm talking about deep research, I'm talking about listening to a podcast. Before I ever approached Scott to get his advice, I listened to some deep work. And I connected, and I don't know if you remember my messaging to you, Scott, but it was like, wow, this sounds like me.
No, I do. I remember. Yeah.
Very personal. So it's really about the individual and showing them that you care and taking the time to really listen and hear what they said, and then come up with a perspective on how and why you want to meet with them to help them with what they shared. That's where a lot of people skim over. They spend 5 minutes glancing at a LinkedIn profile. That's not the deep research. Now,
and then which of those steps do you think most people would self-disclose as the one that is their biggest problem?
I would say where I feel like a lot of people would say they have a challenge is coming up with a point of view and using it to prospect. A lot of people think, well, what I hear my coaching clients say is, I don't know how my product's going to help, with what they share or what I learned about them. And they don't have that strong link that they can share. So they have trouble connecting what the executive cares about to what they sell, because executives are speaking at very high levels. So that takes a lot of work as well to really link back. And again, this is not a prospecting, training. This is on how to run the executive meeting. But fundamentally, if you spend a little bit of time trying to prospect executives, you're not going to get the meeting. They're super busy. They get 10, 20, 50 emails a day from people just like you. So it's really got to stand out in order to get in the door. You have to stand out and you have to connect to what they care about. Okay. There's a lot of ways to do this, but I find, I really do try to find something that I can connect with that is personal, that's relatable, and share and open up about myself individually and why I reached out. So I can show you one example of this if you want to see it right now, because I'm going to just show you this because it's relevant. It's coming up. So this is from my Prospecting to Power masterclass that I do. And I share an example of a highly personalized email that I use to get in with a chief customer officer. So I'm going to start sharing my screen again. Is this, hold on. Give me 1 second. Why is this? Here it is. All right. Can you guys see this high personalization to COO? Can you see that? Okay. So this was one that I sent to the chief customer officer of a company called Experian, where I was not able to get in the door with them. And I listened to one of her podcasts. I Googled her, I listened to a podcast, and I heard her talking about cancer. And I had no idea she had cancer, but she talked about how she overcame cancer and she applied her approach to goal setting for fighting cancer, and one day at a time, focus on the goals, do your chemo, do your work, and stay positive. And it just really warmed my heart. At this time, when I read through it, I was actually dealing with my own health issues. I was going through addiction recovery, and it really resonated with kind of how I was thinking about one day at a time. And so that was the first paragraph, and it was authentic, right? So for me, it's all about being authentic and relatable. She talked about her husband keeping her grounded, and my wife was really doing the same for me. This doesn't feel like a sales email. It doesn't. Okay. And this is what I do to get in with executives. I find something that I can relate to that's personal. I give a compliment that's sincere, and then I try and connect it back. So her whole podcast was on goal setting. And then I said, well, that's why I want to meet. I want to understand your goals around she was the chief customer officer, and we hadn't talked about her vision for customer support and marketing. So I wanted to get time. She replied back within an hour and booked time on my calendar and ended up doing some very large deals with us that year. So this is a example of, fundamentally, it doesn't feel like a sales call. Okay. It doesn't feel like a sales call. And that's exactly what it shouldn't feel like a sales call. It should be very, very different. That's really what we're looking for. So when we're going through, I think there's some questions, Scott. You want to answer that? Someone said +1. So
they're just agreeing with you.
Oh, cool. Okay. So that's the key. Human to human selling. Make it real, authentic, connect. I mean, I know for a fact I remember what I talked to Scott about. It was like, he said sales recovery is like addiction recovery or something. It was like, I'd never heard anyone talking about that. And that's what I brought up. And it was really cool to connect on that level. Right. So I with yo-yo selling, again, it's all about finding that connection point that we can go to. So here's another way to get in the door, how to land the meeting with an executive. Because again, I can talk about emails and how to write copy and all that stuff, but that's not what we're talking about today. But I do want to give you one thing from CEB, the challenger customer, some studies that they did. And typically the best way to change a customer's purchase path is to teach them something new about their business needs and challenges, which they didn't already know, and provide a compelling reason for them to take action. So if you're teaching something that they weren't aware of and telling them why they should care, that generally gets the meeting with an executive. So I've done this many times, and the best way to teach them something about their business is actually to get some of that information, not try and sell, but collect some of the information at the lower level. So when you go to the executive and say, here's what you're doing, here's how it's hurting you, here's the costs, were you aware of this? I think we need to talk. All right. So there's a guy named Kevin Dorsey who posted about this. And I really liked what he posted. So it's not always start high with no knowledge, right? Sometimes you want to start high with knowledge of what you already know and take it to that executive. That's a really, really effective way to get a meeting. And you want to say to them, hey, here's what's going on. Here's the impact it's having. We need to chat. We can help. Okay. So KD posted this, LinkedIn post, and I'll share it with everyone in the chat right now. So you guys have it because it's really good. And could it be about competitors? I never talk about competitors. If it's a competitive product that they're using that is siloed or inefficient or whatever, I'll talk about the systems, but I won't call out or bash a competitor. I just don't do that. I'll more talk about why it's inefficient, what they're using and how, but I won't get into the details of the exact level. They're not going to care about that. So what Katie said is everyone's trying to go high out of the gate, but it's a mistake, both in prospecting and deal closing. Call low for information, call middle for insight and impact, and call high for influence. You can't target the top with, I'm going to triple your X if you don't know what X is. Here's the formula. Low, just understand what they're doing, right? You're not trying to sell them if you go low. You're just trying to understand if the problem even exists. At the middle level, you're trying to find out, do they care about solving it? Have they tried to solve it? Is this something that they're aware of? Have they tried to fix it? Are they trying to fix it actively? And at the top, that's when you go with, hey, here's what's going on. Here's how it's impacting you. Here's how I think we can help you. Can we continue the conversation? Okay, so I've done this many times where I got stuck at a champion level or at a deal level where they were clearly there was a big problem, but they couldn't get the deal done. So I would go over to an executive and say, here's all the work we've done. Here's what's happening. I need your support. I need your sponsorship because this is truly going to help you. And I need you to know about it and get your guidance. And those are the times when it's not about going over someone's head. It's more about, hey, here's what's going on. Were you aware of this? It's having a major impact. So that's another way to get to the top. But the key here is you're not trying to sell at the lower level. You're just trying to collect that information to see if they even have the problem that you're trying to solve versus being so presumptuous to say, yeah, we definitely have this problem and here's how we're solving it. Okay. Can everyone see this post? Can you guys access that? Yeah, perfect. Okay. So the next thing is once we land the meeting, So you land the meeting by teaching them something they don't know about their business, showing them a compelling reason to meet with you. And you also land it by making it very personal, showing you care by doing your research about them. Okay, so once we get the meeting, Scott, is my screen showing now? Because I know going back and forth,
Yep.
it wasn't showing.
No, we got you prepared for
So
the meeting.
Perfect. So the first thing I always do is I send out the invite. Then I always include the agenda on the invite. I confirm if they accepted. If they haven't accepted, I'll send them an email. I'll say, I noticed you haven't accepted. Just want to make sure we're still going. Before I ever get to the meeting, I'll do research, and I'm trying to find something that I can talk about to build rapport with them. I'm trying to find common ground so I can have that human to human element to start the meeting, right? Just something to show that I've done my research and that I know who I'm talking to. I also want to prepare my point of view or my commercial teaching on how I believe I can help them. Sometimes it's based on what I know from deep discovery. Sometimes it's just a hypothesis based on what we've done with other customers. But you always want to have a point of view that you can share on how you believe you can help their organization based on the research you've done. And most importantly, you want to write all your questions in advance. Just have them prepared, not so you can go down a checklist and interrogate them, but rather so you can remember and have it to look at in case you forget to ask something, okay? Now, the next thing we want to know is how do we get executives to open up to us in that first meeting? And if you have an executive that's kind of like sitting right here and they're not really sharing or whatever, this is really important. So the first thing I do is I always treat that executive meeting as a conversation. Executives like to have conversations. They don't want necessarily a presentation. Now, if you're presenting a proposal to them, that's a different story, right? If they're coming in the last stage to join a meeting, of course you're doing your presentation. But if it's early on in the sales cycle with yo-yo selling, right, we really want to have a conversation to see if the problem exists, to understand what's top of mind for them, to understand what success looks like in their role this year, right? And just treat them as a human. Okay, so you want to treat these executive meetings as conversations rather than presentations. Now, Gong did it I love the Gong data for all this because they analyze so much content. And they did an impact study on what percentage of first meetings have an opportunity opened, right, for a follow-up meeting. So what they found is using slides on the first meeting actually decreases your success rate by 17% to have a follow-up meeting. So on that first meeting, when we're really just qualifying and understanding if we can help them or where the challenges exist, really treat it as a conversation. And the reason for this is simple. When you're presenting, they're staring at the slides. They're not fully present. They can't engage with you back and forth. When you're talking to them, you can connect, you can look them in the eyes, you can hear what they're saying, and you can be present versus fumbling with the slides, okay? So really don't use a deck on the first call, all right? The next way you get executives to open up is you want to share your point of view on how you believe you can help, the research you've done to spark that conversation. Because if they don't know what you do or who you help, then they're not going to know what to share, and it's going to feel like overwhelming for them. So you really want to say, hey, Scott, I work with sales leaders to help them up-level their skills through offering best-in-class training, and I'd love to get a better understanding of your team and where they need help to see if my programs might be a fit for you, right? So it could be literally one sentence. It could be more detailed, in-depth research, but you always want to share your point of view on what you believe you can help them with. Whereas with lower levels in the organization, you may not need to have that deep of a point of view. With executives, a lot of them, because they have such a big responsibility, they want to narrow down the focus of the conversation. And you can help them do that by going first, okay? The last thing you want to do is you want to practice active listening. So many people, they don't listen with the intent of understanding. They listen with the intent of replying. Have you guys ever been in a meeting and an executive or anybody's talking and you're thinking about what you're going to say next, and you're thinking about, oh, I got to hold that thought because they just said something I can help with? Any head nods on that one? Yeah, I see Terry nodding, Brian's nodding, Kelsey. Okay, so what that is we're not fully present. When we're holding that thought, we can't truly listen to what they're saying because we're trying to go next. Whereas the best conversations are when you ask follow-up questions, when you dig deep, and when you try and understand why it's a problem, or if you want clarification on what they're saying or more information, right? That's really what a good active listening requires. Stephen Covey, he's the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is probably my all-time favorite book. He says it best. He says, most people just listen with the intent to reply, and understanding is truly digging deep and understanding, okay, you mentioned this, tell me more. Why is that a problem? Okay, what's the impact of that problem? How long has it gone on for? How's that affecting you? How's that affecting your company, right? When do you want to fix it? Why are you trying to fix it now? I just asked 8 questions in a row about one thing in a conversational format. So that's kind of how this thing flows with executives, is really focus on them. Now, the key to getting people to like you is to be interested, not interesting. If you're trying to be interesting to impress people, you know what? You're going to put them off. It's totally opposite of what you would think. You think, oh, I got to impress them. I have to, shine. I got to be a rock star. It's not about you. It's never about you in sales. It's about them. So the key is that you become interesting to other people when you're interested in other people, right? People like to talk about themselves. It's human psychology. And these are my quotes. So you can steal them and use them however you want, but you leave the best impression when you stop trying to impress. Remember that. You leave the best impression when you're not trying to impress, when you just are genuinely trying to help. Okay. This resonates more with executives than anyone. They see someone who cares, who's interested in them, who's listening, wants to help, right? They're going to open up. They're going to share what their goals are and why they're talking to you and what matters. Okay. So don't worry about impressing them. You don't need to. Just be interested, and they'll like you and they'll want to work with you. All right. We're almost done. So I'm going to give you a couple frameworks to use for the meeting and to run this impactful executive conversation. So here's the framework I use. If I laid it into 10 simple steps, I always start the meeting by using the common ground about them to build rapport. Maybe we're in the same city. Okay. Maybe I saw something or heard something on the podcast that I wanted to call out and ask them about, right? In the case of Daisy, I asked her about her husband and what he taught. And she said he was the English teacher. And I said, that's amazing. I was an English teacher too. Before sales, I taught English in Venezuela. So I had that common rapport. We talked about goal setting together. So really try and personalize it in the very beginning, and that'll let their guard down. When they see that you've done your research and you took the time to understand and ask about them, it's amazing how they'll see you as a person rather than as a salesperson. Now, once I do that, I always ask first, hey, why did you decide to take the meeting? Before I even talk about myself, what were you hoping to get out of the meeting today? This way they open up, they start talking, and then you could kind of wrap the rest of the conversation around what they were hoping to get out of it. Okay. At that point, I usually share a point of view on how I think we can help. And I ask them to validate, is this resonating? Is this important to you? Or is there something higher priority or top of mind that we should be focusing on instead? So at this point, I'm going to share how I think we can help them. But if it's wrong, I'll say, hey, you know what? Hey, this is just a guess. I think we can help here based on what I've researched, but I'd love to hear from you if that's something that is top of mind, if you've been thinking about that, and get your point of view. So at this point, I validate and I transition to discovery. Now, once they start talking, that's when we want to practice our active listening. We want to dig deep to understand their top priorities and really ask those second and third level questions. At the end of the meeting, I always position a discovery as the next step. So I want to talk to your team. I want to understand who are the key players. I want your permission. Sounds like we can really help you. I'd love your permission. Who are the people we need to talk to? What are the systems that we need to see that you're using? Who can get me the information that I need to be able to design a solution for you to help you, right? So there's always deeper discovery when you sell software or anything complex. So I always make sure that I ask them about the discovery process and sell the discovery process. And then I ask them for a handoff. Great. So someone on your team can show us this information, show us the system, show us how you're doing this today. I'll come back up to you. And I'll share our findings. So you want to get their commitment to meet with them once you've done the discovery. You don't want to have a handoff. You want to have a yo-yo. So I'm going to come down, I'll get this information, I'll come back up to you, and I'll report my findings back to you on the key areas and the ways that we can help, whether it's a business case, whether it's a demo, whether it's a custom solution, right? I'm always going back up to them. So I maintain that line. And again, I kill the deck and not a pitch. Anyone here of Jamal Raymir? Anyone here of Jamal Raymir? He does $50 million deals, a mega dealer, really interesting, good guy. Can you guys see my LinkedIn screen right now? I'm sharing. No, it's weird because when I share my screen, it's not sharing the whole screen. It's just sharing. I think I know why. I think it's because the whiteboard. That's why it's because the whiteboard. There's no option for sharing mirroring the screen with this. It's really strange, but I'll just go back to. I don't need to show the LinkedIn. Jamal said he did a comment earlier today on one of my posts, and I thought it was really good. He does massive deals. And fundamentally, Jamal said there's three things that he does when he's going to sell larger deals. And he described to a T the yo-yo selling approach. Okay, so I want to share this. I want to share this with you. If I can get I think now, can you see my LinkedIn?
Yep.
Okay, so it says, Ian, love the focus on execs. The bigger the deal, the higher exec you need to engage. Some deals get so big, they take C-level signatures. The first meeting is the start to the exec conversation. That first meeting is the start. So he says 3 commitments I get at that first meeting. Commitment to evaluate. Okay, so that is selling the discovery process. Can I take a look at your systems, at your processes? Can I take a look at your costs to see what type of improvement we can deliver, to see what type of impact we can deliver for you? The second commitment is the commitment to show up at that readout meeting. So that's what I'm talking about. Get their commitment to come back to them with the findings. And then, hey, can you be fully transparent, sharing your systems, your costs, your metrics, right? If I need to know how I'm going to help you, I need to know what you're currently doing today. So I get all those up front, and that saves a lot of time down the road. So that's fundamentally kind of the way that a lot of the top largest sellers are yo-yo selling. Now, the final thing I want to do, because I want to leave time for Q&A, is I want to give you guys some questions that you can use to kind of I think there's a dog in the background. So
that's mine.
Oh, come on, Scott. So executive discovery questions. So here's kind of how I frame the meeting. So I gave you my framework, but here's kind of if I could list out the questions, here's kind of how I do it. I say, well, why'd you decide to take the meeting? What were you hoping to get out of today? Right? First question. Then I always say, hey, here's how I think we can help you, but I'd love to know, is this aligned to any of your top priorities? Does this hit the mark? Are there other things that you're more focused on? And I'm always trying to attach myself to the priority that I can help with, right? A lot of times these executives have big earmarked budgets for strategic projects. And if you could fit your solution as part of a larger project, right, the budget's already there. That's key. I always ask them, once they tell me the priority that I uncover that I can support, it's like, okay, what are you doing to achieve that goal? Why is this important to you, right? Why is this important to you? Why right now? What's happening that's driving this right now? And then I transition to challenges. So I start with goals and objectives, then I go back to challenges. Okay, tell me what problems or challenges you're facing that might get in the way of you achieving these goals. What are the challenges impacting you? So we're implicating pain. What's the impact of those problems? What's the cost of those problems? Why is it important to solve them? Okay, what are they preventing you from doing? What are these challenges preventing you from doing? If you don't do anything, what's going to happen? Let's say we don't address this. What's going to happen? You've tried in the past. It's gone on for 5 years. So what? Nothing changes. Like, why do you need to solve this now, right? So we're really trying to reverse sell. We're trying to make sure it's truly a problem that has a big impact. Hey, if you did solve the problem, now I'm going to get to need payoff. So, hey, if you did solve the problem, what would this enable you to accomplish? Would you get promoted? Would you be able to raise money for your Series C? Would you be able to, grow sales, grow revenue, right? How will you measure success? One of the questions I'd love to ask, this is one of my favorites, is, hey, let's fast forward a year from now. If I were to ask you, fundamentally, and you tell me, if I were to ask you, you had your best year that you've ever had, what would you have accomplished? What would you have accomplished, fast forward a year from now, if you could say you achieved all of your goals, and get them imagining, envisioning what success looks like, right? These are the conversations we want to have with executives, right? What's in it for you if you succeed? And then it's who else on your team do we need to work with? Tell me about the lay of the land. What other stakeholders do we need to be involved with? The key is this should feel like a conversation, not an interrogation. You're not going the checklist. It's going to feel very choppy and unnatural. It's simply a conversation. But these are the questions that are examples that I'm giving for digging deep. Now, after the meeting, we should have these 5 questions answered. We should know what problem that we're focused on solving, what it's costing them, why they need to change and what they can't do because of it, what happens if they don't fix it, and why right now, what's driving this in this timeline. That's what I'm trying to uncover in this executive meeting. And if you know it's a large deal, it's typically these 5 things, right? It's typically, it helps them achieve a top goal or solves a major problem. If they don't solve it, it's a high risk. It's often important to a senior executive or important to their company to address, and they're trying to do it right now. The last thing is I'll share a story for Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. So the year after I missed my quota 3 years in a row, I decided to go all in on very few accounts, right? It's called the Pareto principle, less is more, fewer accounts, the 80-20 rule, 80% of revenue coming from 20% of your accounts, right? So I said, I'm going to go all in on Berkshire Hathaway Services. Now, we were stuck at IT, we were stuck at procurement. They were asking for a project for one application, and they said we were 3 times the competitor. The deal size was about 150K. And so I went to the COO of the company and I said, your IT department and purchasing is looking at this all wrong. This application that we're talking about is way more strategic and important than what they're thinking. They're trying to replace like for like, but this is an application that can change the whole trajectory of your business. It was their awards application for their agents that was going to be used to measure and track performance of all their agents and incent them to get to their President's Club. And I said, all you're looking at is a database. Let's use this as a way to give visibility before President's Club so they can see how close they are. Let's give them reminders. Let's make it public. Let's make it mobile. Let's make it work. You're missing the point. And I got a meeting with the COO because they came in with a strong point of view. And the COO said to me, he said, Ian, this is not our biggest problem. I love your diligence. Thank you for coming to me. But here's my biggest problem. Awards is one of 60 projects that we have on the table. And of those 60, only 3 have been delivered on time and under budget. Our IT department is not bringing any value because they're trying to build everything themselves. And this database project for the awards is just one of the examples. I could point to every app. We need to rip out entire infrastructure, move to cloud, and get out of the apps business so we can get into the people business. Right now, we are losing agents because we can't deliver technology. We are losing market share to Zillow and Compass and Redfin, who are wiping, sweeping us, right? And if we don't empower these agents to be successful by giving them best-in-class tools, we are going to be out of business. And the minute that happened, everything changed, okay? He also told me, I asked him, why is this important to you? He said, Ian, my mom was a single mom. I never got to meet my father. And real estate gives all of our agents and all the single moms out there an opportunity to be with their families and have a career. And I am failing them. I am letting them down if I don't deliver them and train them and empower them with the best tools. That's why we want Salesforce. So now it wasn't about him. It wasn't even about their company. It was about the 50,000 agents that we were helping through what we were selling. It was about the people that we were impacting, the lives we were going to change. Okay. So when I talk about loss aversion, what they have to lose in this story, right? At the individual level, my contact was losing employees. His reputation was on the line because they weren't delivering solutions and agents were leaving. They were missing their goals. They were missing all those deadlines for all the projects that they had. At the company level, right? They were losing customers, market share, revenue, right? They were losing time. And they had a huge opportunity cost they were losing. So in one simple conversation, I found over 10 things that they had to lose if they didn't change. That's when I knew I had a mega deal. And in that year, I closed $12 million deal with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services and got to number 1 because I was solving their biggest problem, which was lack of innovation and agility. They needed a new platform to be able to deliver solutions to their agents and let them keep up with competitors. That's the conversation we want to have that's going to elevate to large transformational deals. Okay. The net income of selling this way was massive. I went from my first 4 years at Salesforce, making about 240 a year, selling about 1.3 million ACV, which is not chump change. I mean, it's not bad, but for most people, it's right around quota in software, and only hitting quota 1 of 4 years, my first 4 years at Salesforce, to making average 716K, 3.5 million ACV, and making club every year, with 2 of those years being over 7 figures on the W2. So this is the massive impact that I made. And I also made a lot of other changes, but this would be by far the number one, focusing on fewer accounts and being at the executive level. So I know I want to take Q&A. And I went a little bit long, Scott. Sorry about that, but we had some
totally fine
engagement. I want to share this with everyone. I do have a newsletter every week. I send out training and videos and content. I also post it all on LinkedIn, but this is just some information here that I have. I'll share some more at the end, but I'd love to kind of take some Q&A with folks and see how I can help with questions about the topic, selling to executives.
The first question that we had was from Benji. Benji, take himself off mute. Come on, Benji. I see you there.
Oh, can you hear me?
There you are.
Okay, thanks. If my question doesn't fit, let me know. But so when you made the decision to move from targeting, maybe lower level roles to executive roles, was that you prospecting across, like targeting those executives, but also prospecting across all 3 low, medium, and high levels? Or is that more of like, hey, this is my SDR team, I want you guys to target executives?
No, it was me doing all the prospecting. I did not rely. Unfortunately, I didn't have a great experience in my 9 years at Salesforce with BDRs or SDRs setting meetings with executives. And I manage Fortune 500 accounts. These are huge accounts, Salesforce's biggest customers. And I was an account director. So from a prospecting standpoint, my role was to align with the executive team and make sure that Salesforce was solving their biggest problems and helping them transform their business and better service to the customer. So my job was to connect with executives. If I wasn't connecting, then I would be out of a job. So fundamentally, I had my BDRs prospecting director level and below, and I was focusing more on the VP and the C-suite for the accounts that I was covering. So it was more of a divide and conquer, but I was prospecting higher up within the company.
Great. So that does kick to my follow-up question then, because I wanted to ask that first, if it didn't make sense. But my follow-up question would then be like, were you going deep and personal? And I saw your examples, so I'm not gonna dive back into that. But when you're reaching out to that C-suite, were you landing the meeting in the first place with them, then going low and medium, and then coming back to them? Is that?
Yeah, that's typically what I would do. But a lot of times I did, have some background on the account. I had history with the account because I'd been managing the accounts for a while with Salesforce. So yeah. I knew where the pain was. I knew where the challenges was. I knew where the goals were, right? So I said, hey, we're at this level, but we're really not doing you any favors by focusing where we are. We need to up level the partnership, the relationship. Let's chat about where we can have the most impact and the most value, right? So I would often reference the work we were doing or the history with the company, or what specifically that we were focused on. I did both new logos and current customers, but towards the end of my Salesforce tenure, they put me on the largest accounts that were the current accounts. So I was an account director, where I had footprint in those accounts that I could basically level up, and the job was to grow those accounts. Now with I would say with new logos, it was typically the executive first and then go back down, right? Versus prospecting down and up. Because I was the Berkshire Hathaway Home Services was a new logo. Okay. My biggest deals that I closed were new logos versus expansion deals. So with the new logo, I definitely used that yo-yo selling approach, where I started high, went down, then went back up. But my approach in showing KD and that, that approach of use the bottom to get information is very effective with current accounts or potentially deals that are not getting anywhere, where you know you can help them and you have some context or background that you can take to the executive. So it really just depends. But my approach is always to start high. And, you know, if you can't get anywhere, then get some information lower and then surface it back. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, no, that was an incredible answer. Thank you. I was really curious about that because the net new logo thing, I mean, that's what, you know, it seems like modern selling right now. You know, you're either in the two places that you talked about. Can this person find and create their own qualified opportunities and close net new deals? Or can they go to the strategic huge accounts that you were handling towards the end of your career? So yeah, that's starting with the executives, seeing, because once you get that meeting with the executives, right, and they're delegating to you to go meet with the low and middle and then come back to them, now your champion, so to speak, is your exec, right?
That's right. That's right. Your champion is not lower level that's selling up. Your champion's an exec. So it speeds up the whole sales cycle. That Berkshire Hathaway deal closed in 6 months. My Activision deal closed in 6 months. Okay. Once you're starting at the higher level, everything else moves very quickly because people will agree to take a meeting if they're executive. The other thing is executives will bring other executives into the meeting. So when I went for Berkshire Hathaway, for example, the COO brought in the CEO, the CFO, the CIO, all the C-suite for a workshop that we did. I had 20 people in the room from their entire C-suite, all VPs and above. So it's like that whole access to power thing is gone when you have an executive that's sponsoring the deal. They come right in. You're absolutely right, Amy. Absolutely.
That's awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
I think Dale's putting a few comments about diverse pipeline. Dale, did you have a question on this? I don't want to skip the queue, but I saw a few from Dale.
No question in particular. I just like I've seen whale hunting before, and a lot of reps try to go down that path, but they don't go through the sequence that you're going through. Like Benji was just asking about the whole SDR world. Like when you're going after these accounts, SDRs and BDRs don't exist. Like they don't. You got to do all the work. So it's all the heavy lifting that you have to do. Yeah, you don't rely on your SDR and BDR to do this deep research. A lot of them are activity driven, they're metric driven, they're volume driven. This is quality over quantity. It's picking a few people in your top accounts to do this deep work with. The other thing I want to call out is this concept of low, medium, and high. Okay, so I want to call out the concept of low, medium, and high. So fundamentally, I got to step outside because my housekeepers are going to clean my office, and give me 1 second. I'm just going to step out for a second. So fundamentally, sorry, the baby's out here. I'm in my yard.
It's okay. I, for one, am enjoying this super bougie moment of Tequila Tuesday.
I'll show you what's going on in my background. I have this funny screen in the back, but I don't even know how to change it. I think it's on the video.
I also am enjoying the fact that you appear to be worse than me at technology, which is
you
really saying something. I am enjoying this. I'm not going to lie, Ian. It is very special.
That's what's going on behind me.
There we go. There we go.
There's a madness in my backyard. So I'm going to take you guys. I'm going to take you guys to another room where I can go in. Can you hear me okay right now?
Yep, we got you. We got you.
This is how it is every day for me right around this time. So maybe I need a Tequila Tuesday. So coming in. Okay, I have some space. Here we go. All right. So I want to be really clear. You get to plan with singles and doubles. You get to 300%, 400% with adding and sprinkling big deals on top. You don't want to be totally dependent on these big deals. You want to get your plan consistently. So that's why I hear like healthy mix. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying on the diversity side. Like I know a lot of people just after they start going after the big whales, like they forget about the singles and doubles, and then like all of a sudden they're 6 months in, they have no deals closed. They have no, like they're wondering where all their revenue is going to come from, and then they have no job. So
that's right. That's right. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. You want to sprinkle. Here's what I do. Sprinkle your top 20, top 10 prospecting, your executive prospecting, along with that run rate, along with that consistent business. But don't be all focused there. That's so important. And I will tell that to everyone. Get to single. What I was most proud of. So that year when I finished number one, I sold nearly 6 million. what I was most proud of is if I took Berkshire Hathaway away, I still was over my plan. Okay. Only 3.5 of that was Berkshire Hathaway. So there was another 2.5 over plan with other deals. And that to me was like, seriously, where I was most proud. So anyway, let's keep going with the questions. I know we got a bunch.
Yeah, let's go to Vincent. I had you teed up.
I'm right here. Thanks, Scott. And hey, and
All right.
appreciate it. So this is sort of related to the question I was asked, and I'm just curious if you have thoughts or experience on this. I'm currently selling it to small businesses, 200 headcount or lower, quick sales cycle, 30 days, so a really different ballpark, but
Yeah,
just
sure.
thinking about how to, access executives when often it's based on inbound leads that I'm getting primarily. So I'm not doing a ton of outbound prospecting currently. So just in that regard, ways to sort of kind of bypass respectfully without burning that bridge, the champion that has been kind of set to take the meeting with me as the AE. Like, how do you think about engaging with higher level executives in this context?
Yeah, I would say, so you get an inbound lead, someone raises their hand, they want a demo, or they want to, maybe the SDR sets it, they want to learn about your product or service.
Exactly.
Their job is to evaluate. Their job is not necessarily to purchase and to buy. So they're evaluating on behalf of their company. So what I do is I go through them to collect the information. What are you using today? What are the challenges? What are the problems? Why are you talking to us? Same thing as I would do, with other people, but I will not give them a proposal. I will collect the information. And then when it comes time to propose, I will say, well, who else besides yourself needs to sign off? Why do they care? I'd love to make sure they're included, since they're the ones who are ultimately going to have to sign off. If they have questions, concerns, we want to make sure they're, involved. Now, if the champion pushes back and says, well, I don't want to bring them in. I've been tasked with doing this, which you hear here and there. Fundamentally, what I'll tell them is, look, here's why they need to be on, right? Because fundamentally, it's going to help you sell this effectively. Now, if you want to see it first and make sure you look good in front of them and that you vet it, I'm happy to walk you through it first, but I really want to make sure that we're co-presenting at the very least, right? So I still want to push for that meeting. And the way I position the proposal is like just to review it with them first before we get in front of the executive together, right? So I co-present with that person, but I still will not just give them numbers so they can sell it. I had this happen today. I had someone who signed on with me for a coaching contract, and he was the head of sales. He's like, well, I want to talk to the CEO. I'm like, do I need to talk to CEO? He said, no, CEO is letting me do everything. I'm like, okay, that's great. He's like, I want to move forward. I'm like, that's fine. Is your CEO going to let you buy? He's like, yeah, absolutely. So he wrote me back right after the call and he said, let's sign up. CEO's good. I sent him a screenshot. So I'm like, great. So it really comes down to understanding whether or not they're just tasked with evaluating, or if they have the authority to buy on behalf of their company. So you just want to, before you get to the proposal, really spend time digging to understand that dynamic of the deal. My general rule is never take no from somebody who can't say yes, and always present to power unless you're absolutely blocked out. Really push to get that, because it does make all the difference to the stats I shared earlier, even in SMB. So great question.
Appreciate that.
No worries, Vincent.
Let's go to Evan Griffith.
Hey, thanks for all this, Ian. This is really informative stuff. Being a salesperson, I latched on to one thing that you said that wasn't exactly relevant to the rest of this talk, but I wanted to ask kind of a little bit more of your opinion on it. You mentioned some of the mindsets that were crucial in addiction recovery.
Yes.
I was curious if you had any other thoughts or other mindsets. I have one in particular I'd love to ask you about, but I just love to know if you've got a few that you, besides the 1 day at a time mindset, that you have found very useful. I know there's a ton.
Yeah, listen to Scott.
I'm in recovery as well, so I've got my share of them. But
I had a whole podcast episode with Scott on this last year. There's a lot, right? For me, here's my philosophy, and I'm going to steal a quote from Jim Rohn on this, is if you work on your job, you can make a living. If you work on yourself, you can make a fortune. So for me, a commitment to self-mastery is how I've been able to be successful, not just focusing on executives, but improving the areas where I have deficiencies or gaps. I have so many frameworks that I use, but for me, it's been 2 years since I've gotten drunk, since I've, smoked pot. I started identifying all the things that were like out of alignment for me, that were really holding me from being my best self, my best version. I'm going to share. Can I share something really powerful with your group, Scott, that has nothing to do with sales, but will change your life? Okay.
Sure show, Ian.
So I appreciate you calling me out on the tech, and I'm going to prove you wrong right now on how I know and why I know technology. So this is a whiteboard in Zoom. Okay. Is this showing up?
Yep.
So I'm going to show you something that I've been working on, which I feel like is the crux of every person's misery or every person's salvation or freedom. So it's what I call living with integrity. Okay. And on the one hand, we have performance. On the x-axis, we have performance. Okay. And this is the performance that we have in our work, in our personal life, in our health. It's whatever we view performance as. And on the other hand, we have time. And I'm going to show you a graph right here that's going to the top right. Okay. And this line represents the integrity line. Okay. This line, what I call this is living with integrity. So this line right here is the integrity line, and this represents our, I'm going to just call this, you can screenshot this at the end, but this is living with integrity. Okay. So the integrity line represents a few things. It represents our self-belief. It represents our self-image. It represents our values, our beliefs, and our ideals and our principles. This is the way we think we should be. Okay. And why it's going up to the top right is as we get older and as we mature in life, we expect more from ourselves. Scott and I were talking about this literally before we jumped on the call. We expect us to have a certain level of income. We expect us to have a certain type of house, a certain family. We expect our health to be in certain order. We expect more from ourselves as we grow older and mature. Okay. Now, where people run into a problem is this line. Any guesses on what this line represents?
Results.
Any guesses? Our results. That's right. This is our reality. This is our reality. Okay. This is the reality line. And what this represents more than just results, and this is something I took from recovery, but I've been applying it to every area of my life. This represents our actions, but also our behaviors and our results, all three of these things. So when our reality line does not match our integrity line, right? What we have in this area, Scott, I hope I'm redeeming myself with this, is we have a massive gap, okay? And this gap is called an integrity gap. And this is what you need to focus on closing. In other words, if you feel that you are an honest person, but you are hiding things from your spouse. I had someone today in a coaching call tell me, they're very honest, but yet they're hiding that they're vaping from their spouse. Okay. That is a full integrity gap. Okay. Our beliefs about ourselves being honest and our actions hiding something, lying, doesn't align. Okay. So fundamentally, if we feel like we're fearless, but we're not, prospecting or afraid of going to executives, we're going to have a gap. So the great thing about this graph and what it represents is anyone has the ability to take this integrity line and actually close the gap. That's not what I was trying to do. Now Scott's going to laugh again because I'm going through. This is it. So
no, I'm going to give you credit here because you're doing something that I would not be able to do right here.
Okay. So this represents, if we change our actions and our behaviors, we are doing all we can. Success is not the prize. Success is the process over prize. Let's work on ourselves.
Yep.
Okay. Be the best we can be. John Wooden defines success as the peace of mind and self-satisfaction that comes from knowing we are doing our best to be the best version of yourself. So awareness on your flaws, on your gaps, we all have them, on our blind spots, right? And working actively to close them, right? That is where this gap can be closed. So that's the biggest thing I will take from recovery. It's the biggest thing that I will take is we are all works in progress, but having the awareness and taking actions and changing our behaviors is what leads us to get that peace of mind and self-satisfaction that comes from knowing we are addressing the things in our life that we're not happy about. So I wasn't happy with my performance. I addressed that. I got to number one. Then I wasn't happy with my addiction. I addressed that and I pursued a path of recovery. I wasn't happy with my marriage. I got into counseling. I started working on being more honest, putting more time with my family, having lunch with my wife, date nights, quality time, right? So It's always things we can work on. But when we know our values and our beliefs match our actions and behaviors, it is true inner peace. It is true fulfillment. And I'm living, walking proof of that, right?
You have less distractions too when you close that gap as well.
Hell yeah. If you're watching YouTube videos during the day, if you're distracted, that's going to hurt your work. You're going to feel bad about yourself. And you know what you're going to do? You're going to take it home at night and you're going to have stress that's going to impact your relationships and the one you love, because you're not going to be present with them because you didn't do what you set out to do. I have a golden rule of time management, and it's this: the quality of the time you work determines the quantity of time that you have outside of work. So if you work on high quality at work and you actually work all day and what you're supposed to be doing, that will free up time to spend doing the things with the people that you love, doing the things that you love with the people that you love. But if you waste the day and if you don't go out and achieve what you set out to do, you know what? You're going to take that with you and you're going to deprive your family of having your best, fully authentic self with them. That's something I live by. It's called the golden rule of time management. Thank you for the question. I could talk about that all day because that's my favorite.
That's awesome. Can I have one very specific follow-up question?
Sure.
I definitely don't want to monopolize the time everybody
You're
else.
Good.
But I got one also in addiction recovery for the last probably 15 years of my life. And one mindset that was very useful to me in getting through the process and also in being an account executive, I'm now at a leadership level and I'm starting to question, is this something that I actually think is useful? Because I have heard examples of people being told this mindset in rather toxic environments, and I'm trying to do a level set. Is this something that I think is something that works? And that is, don't get too high, don't get too low, maintain that equanimity. Yeah. Because the extreme emotions are the ones that can really lead you astray.
Thank you for sharing that, Evan. And my thoughts are this: I used to be all in and all out, and I was on this crazy ass sales roller coaster, high, low, low. That's why I was an addict, because I was so stressed out that I had to completely go the opposite direction and escape and self-indulge to alleviate some of that pain and anxiety that came with the territory. Now it's like this: a little high, a little low. I know I'm super high energy. That's how I'm wired, because we're talking about stuff that I love, and I'm just happy to be on the call with you guys. But fundamental, it's the highs are a lot less high and the lows are a lot less low. It feels kind of boring, but you know what? It feels damn good. That type of consistency is everything that, for me, my recovery requires, right? I don't want to have the extremes. So I put myself in situations. I don't take too much on. I keep my ambition in check, right? And I just focus on what I can do, because believe me, as a new entrepreneur, there's a million, Scott knows this, a million directions, a million opportunities, things coming your way every day. So it's really important to say no to the things that don't help you get to the goals of where you want. And it's important to know where you want to go. And it's important to say no to the things that aren't helping you get there, right? So I say no a lot more than I say yes.
Awesome. This is super juicy stuff. Really appreciate you diving right into it. Thank you.
My favorite topic of all. So thank you for asking the questions, for sure.
All right, I know we lost Vlad. Is Adam Witherspoon here still? I don't see Adam. What about Wayne Morris? Wayne, I see you. You're up.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Hey, Ian. I loved all of this.
Did everyone get the screenshot? Can I stop sharing the Living with Integrity? Just want to make sure before I stop. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, Wayne, go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. Loved all of this. I think I loved the last bit even more than the first part, but I'm going to go back to the first part. I have two questions in one. You talked a lot about business goals in the way in which you set up getting into the decision makers. My question is, how much value do you put on uncovering personal goals? So how this purchase will positively impact their careers versus business goals. And if you do put value on personal goals, how do you go about uncovering them, and in what forum?
Yeah, I don't honestly spend that much time on the personal goals. What I do is, a lot of people aren't airing their personal goals when you do that research on the podcast, or, they're not necessarily talking with Daisy. She did talk about personal goals, right? So that's why I referenced cancer and some of that personal stuff with her husband. But a lot of people talk about the business and the fundamental. I will generally reference something personal to get the meeting, to hyper personalize the meeting. But when I get in the meeting, I talk a lot about the business, and then I ask one question typically. And that question is this: what's in it for you? If you succeed, and if you don't succeed, what could it cost you? right? So I guess that's two questions. So what's in it for you if you succeed? And if you don't succeed, what could it cost you? I think that's really important. And I always try to ask that. And that was one of the questions that was in that discovery, that list that I shared that you'll get a copy of.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Salma, can I ask you a question, Salma?
Yeah, thank you, Scott. Hi, Ian. Thanks for sharing everything. This was really, really helpful.
My pleasure.
I do have a question around accessibility. I know it came up a few times. Vincent touched on it, but if you are trying to push to get more meetings with execs and you're prospecting, in those messages that you're sending out, you find something personal, whether it's something heavier that you can connect with or something as light as, oh, I also played rugby during university. How do you close the gap without feeling like a phony to get in with a meeting or get in with the solution that you're trying to pitch, without sounding like the first sentence maybe feels like it's fake because I'm only trying to get a meeting with you?
Yeah, so I love the question. And I would say if it feels phony to you, then it's going to feel phony to them. So you might need to spend more time finding something that you authentically could connect to about them that you can bring up. If you're just bringing up, we went to Cal, I will never say, oh, we went to Cal. I went to Cal too. That's just bullshit. You don't want small talk. You really want to find something deep that you can connect to that's authentic. So when you bring it up, it will feel real versus insincere, right? So that's my advice is if it feels phony, if it doesn't feel authentic, don't even reference it, right? Don't even mention it. Just talk about how you can help their business, why you reached out. Don't do like a one-liner and then go right into the pitch. Don't do that. I get those all the time. Hey, I saw we have mutual connections. Let's talk about this. I'm like, that's bullshit, right? So if you're going to reference something, really reference, hey, I saw this person. He's a good friend of mine and I grew up with him. Curious how you know him. I'm reaching out because of X, right? So it's got to feel genuine, and do not fake it, or else they'll sense it a mile away and it won't feel authentic to you. Does that answer your question?
It does, yeah. And I think the part that really answered my question is that I can still be direct on what I want. Even if I am sincere in the first part, I can still be like, this is still the reason why I initially reached out to you.
And again, today wasn't necessarily how to prospect, but that's coming up a few times. So I will just call this out. Be direct. Don't say, I can help you grow revenue and reduce costs. Like everyone says that, right? So here's how. Share why you want to meet and how you can help, and ask them, curious if this resonates, would you be open to a conversation, right? So don't be generic and super high level. Really give them a little more of the sausage, how the sausage is made. Don't write like a huge essay, but at least give some context as to here's how we help customers like you solve this problem, right? So I always would include a little more versus this generic one-liner, that's not really, doesn't tell them anything because they're getting that from everyone else, right? So give them a little more detail on how you can help them. I think that's what I mean when I say be direct.
Got it?
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, we've come to the end of the show tonight. I want to thank Ian again for sharing all this knowledge with us. We had a good group of people here. Big show tonight, 65 people, I think was the highest that I saw, and I'm sure a couple hundred people will watch it tomorrow and in the coming days. Ian, bring us on out and take us on home, man. Give people the parting thought. Tell people where they can find you, what you're going to be up to next, all that good stuff.
Thank you for asking, Scott. Just a couple quick. So I'm doing some big things in the sales training for AEs. I'm launching a platform at the end of March. Knock on wood. We're in development right now. It's called Untap Your Sales Potential. So I'll leave the link right here in there. I have a wait list of 600 people right now. But if you are interested, if you like the content, you want to learn its mindset, its habits, and its selling skills for strategic sales. So if that's something that resonates, go to that link, Untap Your Sales Potential, and get on the wait list, and I'll reach out when there's more information. If you want just my free content, I have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/Ian Koniak. I also have a LinkedIn site, LinkedIn, Ian Koniak. Follow me on LinkedIn, connect, just tell them you're part of Scott's group, and I'll send you a link to my newsletter. If you do want to just see it, here's the link to it. If you want to scan that, that'll give you a link directly to the newsletter to get on there. I send out a new training video every single week. I spend a lot of time putting those together. It's all free to serve the sales community. And again, I'm here to support and up-level the industry of sales, and however I can help you guys do that, I'm here for you, and am easy to find. So I just want to thank everyone for the call, and for Scott, and I'm glad this was helpful. And, you know, it was really a lot of fun for me to be on here serving you, everyone here.
Yeah, we really enjoyed it. We appreciate you. Connect with Ian, check out his platform, subscribe to his newsletter, and we will see you next time on Tequila Tuesday. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, brother.